50 Shades of Grey, exploring the emotional depths of Christian Grey. Christian Grey had mastered the art of stillness. It was the stillness of a man who never allowed chaos to surface, who understood that power often resided not in movement, but in restraint. When he entered a room, the atmosphere shifted, not because he demanded attention, but because attention bent instinctively toward him. His posture was deliberate, his gaze measured, his voice calm to the point of austerity. He appeared invulnerable, as though nothing in the world could surprise him. But that impression was an illusion, one he had carefully constructed. Beneath Christian Grey's controlled exterior existed a turbulent emotional world shaped by memory, fear, and longing. He did not lack emotion, rather, he felt too much. And so he had learned to bury feeling beneath structure, replacing spontaneity with precision, and vulnerability with control. This was how he survived. The architecture of control. Christian's need for control was not born from arrogance or dominance, but from necessity. As a child, he had known instability intimately, known what it meant to be powerless, unseen, and unsafe. Those early years left scars not easily traced by the eye, but deeply embedded in the nervous system. Trauma had taught him that unpredictability was dangerous, and that attachment often came at a cost. The mind adapts in remarkable ways when survival is at stake. Christian adapted by building walls. Rules governed his world. Boundaries were clearly defined. Relationships, when they occurred, followed predetermined frameworks. Emotion was compartmentalized, carefully managed, allowed to surface only in controlled environments where it could not overwhelm him. Intimacy, to Christian, was not about closeness, it was about safety. And safety, in his experience, required distance. He told himself this was choice. He told himself he preferred it this way. But in quieter moments, those rare nights when sleep eluded him, he wondered whether preference was merely a story he told to justify fear. Memory as a silent architect. Christian rarely spoke of his past, but it lived within him, shaping his reactions in ways even he did not always consciously recognize. Certain sounds, certain silences, certain emotional expectations could provoke a tension he could not easily explain. He disliked uncertainty. He disliked being needed too deeply. He disliked the idea of being depended upon in ways he could not control. Most of all, he disliked the idea of being seen. To be truly seen meant risk. It meant someone might recognize the fractures beneath his composure, the unresolved grief, the lingering sense of unworthiness, the quiet belief that love, if offered fully, would eventually be withdrawn. He had learned early that love could disappear. So Christian learned to disappear first. An unexpected presence. Anastasia Steele entered his life without ceremony, without intention, and without awareness of the disruption she would cause. She did not arrive as a challenge or a conquest. She arrived as an anomaly. She did not behave as expected. She was awkward where others were polished, hesitant where others were eager, honest where others were strategic. And most unsettling of all, she looked at Christian Grey without reverence or fear. She did not treat him as an icon or an authority. She treated him as a person. That alone unsettled him. Christian had grown accustomed to being admired from a distance. Admiration was safe. It required nothing of him emotionally. But Anastasia's attention was different. It was curious rather than covetous. Observant rather than acquisitive. She asked questions not to impress, but to understand. Understanding was dangerous territory. The first cracks. Christian noticed the changes before he understood them. He found himself listening more than speaking, waiting longer than usual for her responses, replaying conversations in his mind, searching not for strategic advantage but for emotional subtext. When she was absent, he felt a subtle disorientation, as though a familiar rhythm had been disrupted. This irritated him. He prided himself on self-sufficiency. Dependence was a weakness he did not allow himself. And yet, Anastasia's presence began to register not as an intrusion, but as an absence when she was gone. It was a sensation he had not experienced in years. Christian attempted to reassert control. He reminded himself of the rules, of the boundaries, of the reasons emotional entanglement was unwise. But emotion does not respond to logic, and the more he resisted, the more acutely he felt the pull of something unfamiliar. Connection. Fear beneath desire. What Christian felt for Anastasia was not simple attraction. It was layered, contradictory, and deeply unsettling. He wanted to protect her, yet feared being responsible for her emotional well-being. He wanted closeness, yet recoiled from the vulnerability it demanded. He wanted honesty, yet dreaded what honesty might reveal about himself. She saw him when he smiled less deliberately, when his composure faltered, when he hesitated before answering questions he had long avoided asking himself. She did not push. And that, more than anything, disarmed him. Christian had built his defenses expecting resistance. He knew how to respond to confrontation, to challenge, to desire. But Anastasia's quiet patience, her willingness to let him be complicated without demanding immediate resolution, created a space he did not know how to navigate. A space where feeling was permitted. The weight of the past. With closeness came memory. Christian found himself revisiting moments he had long suppressed. The loneliness of childhood, the confusion of affection intertwined with pain, the early lessons that taught him love could be conditional, inconsistent, and unsafe. These memories surfaced not as coherent narratives, but as emotional echoes: tightness in his chest, restlessness in his body, unease he could not name. For years he had believed he was beyond such influences. That success, discipline, and control had rendered him immune to the past. But Anastasia's presence revealed the truth. Trauma does not disappear when ignored. It waits. And now, it demanded acknowledgement. Learning a new language. Christian realized that Anastasia was teaching him a language he had never learned, the language of emotional presence. She did not seek to change him, nor did she attempt to fix him. Instead, she offered something far more challenging: acceptance without surrender of self. She set boundaries of her own. She questioned him when he withdrew. She remained honest even when honesty was uncomfortable. And in doing so, she modeled a form of connection Christian had never experienced, one that did not rely on control or submission, but on mutual recognition. This unsettled his worldview. If connection could exist without dominance, what did that mean for the structures he had relied upon for safety? If vulnerability did not inevitably lead to harm, what did that mean for the walls he had built? Christian found himself at a crossroads he could not avoid. The struggle to change. Transformation, Christian learned, was not dramatic. It did not arrive in a single moment of clarity or confession. It arrived in hesitation, in second-guessing, in choosing, again and again, not to retreat when instinct urged him to withdraw. He stumbled, he reverted, he made mistakes born of fear rather than malice. But something had shifted. He began to recognize his defensive behaviors not as preferences, but as patterns, patterns shaped by survival rather than desire. And with that recognition came the painful realization that what once protected him now limited him. Christian did not change for Anastasia. He changed because she made him aware that change was possible. Redefining strength. Strength, Christian had always believed, was synonymous with control, with independence, with emotional restraint. But in the presence of Anastasia, he began to encounter a different definition of strength, one that allowed uncertainty, acknowledged fear, and embraced emotional risk. Admitting he did not have all the answers frightened him more than any external threat ever had. Yet it also liberated him. For the first time, Christian considered that intimacy might not be something to manage, but something to experience. That love might not require perfection, but presence. That being seen did not inevitably result in abandonment. These were not conclusions he reached easily. They were lessons learned slowly, painfully, and imperfectly. A man in transition. Christian Grey did not become a different man overnight. He remained complex, guarded, and deeply introspective. His past did not vanish, nor did his instincts disappear, but his relationship with them began to change. He learned to pause instead of react, to communicate rather than retreat, to acknowledge fear without allowing it to dictate every choice. Anastasia did not rescue him from himself. She walked beside him as he learned to face himself. And in that shared space, fragile, uncertain, and profoundly human, Christian discovered something he had long believed inaccessible: the possibility of connection without erasure of self. Beyond control. The story of Christian Grey is not one of domination or desire alone. It is the story of a man shaped by trauma, navigating the difficult terrain between self-protection and self-acceptance. It is a story about the cost of emotional armor, and the courage required to remove it. Beneath the carefully tailored suits and composed exterior lies a man who feels deeply, fears intensely, and loves cautiously. His journey is not about losing control, but about redefining it, not as the absence of vulnerability, but as the ability to remain present in spite of it. In learning to open himself to Anastasia Steele, Christian Grey begins the slow, uneven, and profoundly human process of emotional liberation. Not because love demands it, but because, for the first time, he believes he deserves it.